Ah, my arm! You broke my arm! The boy's scream tore through the stillness of Southern Avenue like a siren, raw, sharp, and full of pain. And in just a split second, the peaceful Chicago afternoon shattered. Malik Carter, 10 years old, was walking home from his Saturday street dance class, dust still clinging to his sneakers, rhythm in his step, and a soft beat playing through his earbuds. He hadn't done anything wrong, just a skinny black boy with messy hair, worn-out jeans, holding a nearly empty water bottle, and a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. He was just 2 blocks from home when a police car quietly slowed down beside him. No sirens, no flashing lights, just a cold stare from the driver's seat and the creak of a car door opening. "Hey," a voice barked, "stop right there." Malik turned around, his earbuds slipping. "I didn't do anything, sir." "ID." Officer Brent Mallory stepped out, his hand already close to his belt. "I'm 10 years old," Malik replied, still polite, though confused. "Turn around. Hands on the car." I didn't do anything. I said turn around. Now." Before he could react, Brent grabbed his right wrist and twisted it hard. Snap! The horrifying sound echoed between the brick buildings, louder than anything else on the street. Malik screamed and collapsed to the sidewalk. His arm hung limp, bent the wrong way. A choked sob burst from his throat as he clutched the ground with his good hand. "Please stop! It hurts!" The second officer, Graves, stood behind the passenger door, shifting uncomfortably, but said nothing. Inside his hoodie, Malik's trembling fingers reached for his phone. One long press. The emergency shortcut his Aunt Danielle had taught him. A silent call was triggered. The line connected. Danielle Carter had just set down a cup of hot peppermint tea on the kitchen table when her phone buzzed. The sound didn't feel urgent at first. But what she heard was that scream, that unmistakable sound of a child in real pain, followed by a man yelling, and then a chilling silence. She moved before her mind had time to catch up. She got in the car and sped straight to the corner of Southern and 64th, slamming the brakes so hard the truck jolted forward. What she saw made her knees go weak. Malik, her boy, her heartbeat, was curled up on the ground, his arm twisted, his face wet with tears, and standing above him, breathing heavily and without the slightest sign of remorse, was a uniformed police officer. He didn't look concerned. He looked annoyed. Danielle said nothing. She ran. Her military instincts kicked in before her civilian brain could stop her. 10 years of taekwondo, 2 combat tours, all of it poured into one single motion. A perfect roundhouse kick struck the officer in the ribs, sending him stumbling sideways. The second officer pulled out his taser, but too late. Danielle closed the distance, swept his legs, disarmed him, and dropped him with one clean strike. It was all over in under 10 seconds. And then the sirens, real ones, back up. Danielle knelt beside Malik as red and blue lights blurred her vision. "I'm here, baby. I'm here," she whispered, cradling his uninjured arm. "It hurts, Auntie," he sobbed. "He grabbed me. I told him I didn't do anything." "I know," she said softly. "You did good." Other officers pulled her away before she could say more. They cuffed her wrists, ignoring her cries. As they shoved her into the back of the squad car, her eyes met Malik's one last time. And she knew, if no one else was going to protect this boy, then she would, even if she had to burn silence to the ground. At Cook County Holding, the plaster walls reeked of bleach and history, the kind written in bruises. Danielle sat on a metal bench, her hair still damp from sweat and fear. Across from her, in a crisp suit and a weary face, sat Vincent Tate, civil rights attorney, 40 years of experience. "They're charging you with felony assault," he said. She didn't flinch. "I've seen a lot of mothers cry in this room," he continued. "But aunties usually come out swinging." Danielle let out a bitter laugh. "I didn't hit him to make headlines. I hit him because he hurt my boy." "And now?" Vincent asked. Danielle looked down at her bleeding knuckles, then at the bruises blooming along her arm. Her voice was low but firm. "Now? I fight back with everything I've got. And this time, I'm not stopping at his ribs." They called her a threat, not because she had attacked, but because she had refused to stand down. By Monday morning, Danielle Carter's face was plastered on local news stations across Chicago. Woman assaults officers in front of child, claims excessive force. They didn't show the bent wrist. They didn't play the scream. Just grainy cell phone footage of her foot connecting with an officer's ribs, and a headline that read like a warning, "When good women go violent." Danielle sat in the small guest bedroom at her sister's house, their house now, and watched it all in silence. Malik lay on the couch, arm in a cast, his eyes red but quiet. He hadn't danced since. He hadn't even moved to music when she turned it on. That hurt more than the cuffs, more than the bruises. She had hurt one man, but the system had silenced a boy. Vincent Tate returned that evening with news. "The city's moving fast. Brent Mallory hasn't been suspended. He filed a report claiming Malik resisted verbal commands." Danielle's voice was flat. "He resisted being beaten." Vincent nodded. "We'll push back, but they're locking files. They say there's no body cam footage." "Convenient," Danielle muttered. "Graves?" Silent. No statements. "Coward." She stood, pacing. Her muscles ached from the fight and from holding back since. "I need proof," she said. "More than screams and bruises." "There's a video," Vincent said. "Neighbor, too, floors up. Didn't want to come forward at first." He placed a USB stick on the table. But then he heard the audio. Malik's call. Danielle picked it up with trembling hands. "Does it show the moment?" "Every second." She watched it once, then again. Then sat there as the tears finally came. Not because of the violence, but because of how familiar it looked. How routine. Like watching a rerun with different actors, and the same ending. The next morning, Danielle posted the clip. No caption, no commentary. Just truth. It spread like spilled gasoline. By afternoon, a news anchor was playing the audio. Malik's small voice saying, "Please stop." The crack of bone and the silence that followed. Hashtags started. Stand with Malik. Auntie don't miss. Justice in sneakers. But the police department didn't flinch. "Pending investigation," they said. Protocol followed. Protocol didn't sound like a child's scream. Protocol didn't look like a limp cast and a broken dance. Danielle received threats. Her truck tires were slashed. Someone tossed red paint on her front door. A note. "You're the real danger." She didn't flinch. She recorded herself scrubbing it clean and posted that too. She spoke directly to camera. "I've been called worse than dangerous. But I've never been called silent, and I won't start now." That same night, a young Latino officer contacted Vincent anonymously. "Mallory's record is sealed," he said, "but it's not clean. 4 internal complaints in 5 years, all involving black minors, all dismissed for insufficient evidence." Danielle took the names, the dates, the buried files. Then she called a reporter who had once covered corruption in the city's housing board. "You want a story?" she said. "I've got a system that's rotting from the inside out, and a 10-year-old who bled for it." By Thursday, the story was national. Danielle appeared on a live feed beside Vincent and Malik. Her words were calm, composed, but searing. This isn't about one boy or one aunt. This is about the next kid who doesn't have someone watching. The next body left behind because the badge said, "Trust me." We're done trusting silence. That night, Brent Mallory walked into Denny's diner, his regular booth waiting. Danielle was already sitting at the counter. She didn't hide. She didn't yell. She walked straight to his table, pulled out her phone, and pressed play. Malik's voice filled the room. "Please, it hurts. I didn't do anything." Then the crack, then the silence. Every fork in the diner paused. Brent looked up, pale. "Where'd you get that?" he asked. Danielle didn't answer. She slid a napkin across the table, written on it, 10-year-old, broken arm, 3 witnesses, audio. "You still want your coffee?" She turned and walked out without waiting for a reply. Behind her, the room didn't breathe. That was the moment things changed. Not because she struck someone, but because she didn't have to. The truth had landed, and now it was echoing louder than any punch. Danielle got back in her truck, stared through the windshield at nothing in particular. Her voice, quiet to herself. "Next time they try to bury the truth, they better remember, I teach kids how to fight back." Danielle knew something was coming. The system never goes quiet when it's cornered. And sure enough, Friday morning, a plain brown envelope slid under her front door. Inside, a legal notice from the city. They were reviewing her conduct for inciting unrest and compromising active investigations. It wasn't a warning. It was a shot across the bow. And it landed exactly where they wanted, her front porch. But Danielle didn't back down. She looked at the letter, then lit a match, and watched it burn in a tin coffee can beside her porch steps. That afternoon, Vincent called. "It's happening," he said. "Internal Affairs opened a formal inquiry into Mallory, and Channel 7 wants you live at 6 o'clock. Danielle didn't answer right away. She was watching Malik sketch something on the kitchen table. His cast had been signed by over 30 people now, nurses, neighbors, even the bus driver. But it was the words he was drawing across the plaster that caught her breath. "I didn't fight, but she did." Saturday morning, the city called for a formal hearing. Danielle and Vincent arrived early. Mallory hadn't shown. His lawyer claimed he was on medical leave. But the city council chamber was packed. Parents, grandparents, veterans, activists, teachers, people who hadn't spoken up in decades. Danielle took the stand without notes. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. Her voice was low, solid. "I didn't hit him because I lost control," she said. "I hit him because he broke a child and expected no one to care. I hit him because I've watched too many families bury kids who didn't get to speak. But my nephew lived, and now you get to hear him." Malik stepped up, cast still on, hands shaking, his voice small but clear. "I told him my name. I told him I was going home. He didn't listen. He broke my arm." He held up a drawing he'd made. A little boy with a sling, standing tall beside a woman in a hoodie. Above it, "We don't stay down." You could have heard a pin drop. Council members exchanged glances. A retired police lieutenant stood up without being asked. "I covered for men like Mallory for years," he said. "I regret it." A mother raised a photo of her son, also arrested at 14 for resisting. An EMT described how Mallory once abandoned a teenage girl with a concussion. Stories spilled out like floodwater. The chamber wasn't just a room anymore. It was a reckoning. 3 hours later, the decision came down. Officer Brent Mallory was officially suspended without pay, pending termination and criminal investigation. The words hit like a verdict. But Danielle didn't smile. Not yet. That night, she hosted a quiet event at the community center, a self-defense workshop. 10 kids showed up, then 20. Malik stood by the door, welcoming each one. At the end, Danielle wrapped her old black belt around the railing and whispered, "For every kid who thought they had to run." The next morning, she appeared on national television. She didn't wear a blazer. She wore her gym sweatshirt and jeans. "They tried to paint me angry," she said, "and I am. I'm angry that it takes blood for truth to matter. I'm angry that some people still hear a black child scream and ask, what did he do? But mostly, I'm angry that the only justice we trust is the kind we take ourselves." Later that day, Malik returned to dance class. The teacher stopped the music. The room froze, and then Malik stepped forward, raised his casted arm, and moved, slowly at first, then faster. The rhythm came back, not in his feet, but in his fire. When he finished, the room erupted. Danielle watched from the doorway, arms crossed, chest full. One of the moms turned to her. "You trained him?" Danielle smiled. "I trained him to survive. He taught himself how to stand." It was the kind of place you passed 100 times without noticing. Vinyl booths, chipped mugs, a jukebox no one used anymore. But on that Thursday night, Denny's Diner became ground zero for a reckoning. Danielle Carter parked across the street and turned off the engine. Her phone buzzed with another alert. A reporter asking for a quote, a stranger offering prayers, someone anonymous warning her to walk away while you still can. She didn't reply. She reached for the small audio recorder in her jacket pocket and pressed play, listening to the same thing she'd heard a dozen times. Malik's voice, the command from the officer, the sound of his arm breaking, and then that awful, endless silence. Inside the diner, Officer Brent Mallory sat in his usual booth, back to the window, face buried in a menu he'd probably memorized. His badge was off today, tucked under a hoodie, his gun holstered under the table, just in case. But his posture was too relaxed, like he still believed no one would dare come for him in daylight. He didn't notice Danielle until the bell above the door chimed and conversation fell flat. She didn't wear her gym gear, no boots, no belt, just jeans and a black jacket zipped halfway. She moved calmly, like she was ordering coffee, not confronting a man who broke her family. Mallory looked up. His smirk flickered. "Can I help you?" he muttered, low. Danielle didn't answer. She slid her phone onto the table and tapped the screen. "Please stop. That hurts. I didn't do anything." Malik's voice rang out, loud and unfiltered. Then came the sound. Crack. Every fork in the room froze midair. Mallory's jaw tightened. His hands dropped under the table, instinctively brushing near his holster. Danielle didn't flinch. "You know who that boy is?" she asked coldly. Mallory stared at her. "Doesn't matter. He resisted." Danielle stepped closer. "His name is Malik Carter. He's 10. He was walking home from dance class. He never raised a hand. You broke him because you could." Silence. Danielle leaned forward, lowering her voice. "He's my nephew." Mallory's face lost its color. "You threatening me now?" She smiled, but it was a smile sharpened by steel. "If I were threatening you," she said, "you'd already be face down." She slid a folded napkin across the table. On it, in block print, Room 112, County Medical, X-rays, witnesses, audio. Formal complaint filed, media alert pending. "You still want that coffee?" Mallory's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She straightened up, eyes never leaving his. The diner was dead quiet. Even the jukebox lights dimmed in the awkward silence. You think the badge protects you, but what's protecting you is an honor. It's habit, and that habit ends tonight. Danielle turned and walked out. Behind her, the air stayed frozen. One server, an older woman with gray hair pulled tight, picked up the napkin and read it. She didn't say anything, but she didn't refill his coffee either. Outside, Danielle leaned against her truck, heart steady. No adrenaline, no shaking hands, just purpose. Her phone buzzed. It was Vincent. "We got it," he said. "Formal review. Internal Affairs wants a statement." "You shook the tree hard enough. Now things are falling." Danielle didn't smile, but her voice was calm. "Good, because I'm not done yet. Not until the ground remembers the weight of what he did." She started the engine and drove off, tail lights glowing like heat behind her. Sunday came like a slow drum roll. Cloudy skies, still air. The kind of day where the city holds its breath before something breaks. Danielle stood backstage at the community center gym, arms crossed over her chest, watching through the curtain slit. The seats were filling. Old folding chairs, neighbors, parents. A few reporters with notepads they barely pretended to hide. The banner above the stage was simple. Voices Matter, Youth Empowerment Forum. This wasn't a courtroom. It wasn't a protest. It was something older, something more dangerous. It was a story, being handed back to the people it belonged to. At the center of it all, Malik stood in a blue sweatshirt, his cast still tight around his arm. Danielle had offered to speak for him. He said no. "I want to say it myself," he'd whispered that morning. "I want them to know it came from me." Danielle hadn't argued. Now, watching him stand near the microphone, waiting for his name to be called, she felt a strange ache behind her ribs. Not fear, not pride either. Something deeper. Maybe it was the feeling of a generation refusing to be quiet. The announcer called Malik's name. The room applauded politely. Malik stepped up, his sneaker soles squeaking against the old wood floor. He didn't clear his throat, didn't fidget, just stood there, his voice soft and direct. "My name is Malik Carter. I'm 10. I like dancing, pizza with ranch, and drawing sneakers I can't afford." A few people chuckled. "I want to tell you what happened to me," he said, "but not just so you'll feel bad. I want to say it out loud because if I don't, maybe someone else will think it's okay." The room quieted. You could hear the hum of the exit sign. "I was walking home from dance class. I didn't do anything. A police officer stopped me. He didn't ask. He grabbed. He twisted. My arm broke. He held up the cast. This isn't my fault, and it's not just my story." From his back pocket, Malik pulled out a folded sheet of paper, a drawing. He unfolded it and turned it around. The audience gasped softly. The image, a boy in a cast, standing tall on a rooftop. Behind him, shadows of other kids, each with a scar, a bandage, a burden. Over their heads, big block letters, "We stand now." Danielle wiped her cheek without realizing it. The applause started slowly, then built. No chants, no cheers, just hands, clapping, rising like a wave that had waited too long to break. Malik stepped down, walked straight to Danielle, and leaned into her side. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Across the city, local news aired the moment. No edits, no filters, just a boy with a cast and a message. That night, the clip spread faster than any press release ever could. On Instagram, on Facebook, on late-night shows. The next morning, at a press conference, the mayor stood stiff behind a podium and cleared his throat. "We have officially placed Officer Brent Mallory on unpaid suspension, pending termination and federal inquiry. We take these matters seriously." No apology. But the ground had shifted. Danielle stood outside the community center, reporters swarming, microphones raised. She kept her voice low. "I didn't fight to win headlines. I fought because my nephew screamed, and no one came. So I came, and I'll come again if I have to." She didn't wait for questions. She walked away, Malik's hand in hers. They passed a row of kids chalk drawing on the sidewalk. One wrote "Justice" in giant blue letters. Another drew a fist wrapped in tape. At the end of the block, Danielle stopped and looked back. Not at the cameras, not at the building, at the people. "This isn't about one badge," she said quietly. "It's about how many people turned their backs when a child cried out. That's what I'm here to break." The courtroom didn't look like justice. It looked like beige walls, humming lights, and worn carpet. But to Danielle Carter, it didn't matter. She hadn't come here for the furniture. She came for the moment when silence would finally answer for itself. She sat beside Malik at the front, the boy in his Sunday sweater, cast off now, but the scar beneath still fresh. Danielle kept her hands clasped tight in her lap, knees steady, eyes locked on the front of the room. When they called her name, she stood. No dramatics, no microphone echo. Just a woman in a plain black dress, worn boots, and a heart full of unfinished fire. "My name is Danielle Carter," she said, "and I'm here because I couldn't stay home, when a child I love screamed for help and no one came." Her voice didn't tremble. "I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to fight a badge. I've worn a uniform. I know what weight it carries. But a man in that uniform broke a boy's arm without cause. And when I defended him, I was called dangerous, violent, reckless." She let the words settle. "But what do you call the man who caused the scream?" Across the aisle, Brent Mallory sat stiff in a gray suit, eyes sunken, lips pursed like he was chewing blame but refusing to swallow it. His lawyer leaned in, whispering, but Brent didn't move. Danielle looked straight at him. "You didn't just hurt my nephew. You hurt every kid who watches police walk by and doesn't feel safer. You made trust feel like a threat." She turned back to the panel. "But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here so the next child doesn't have to be protected by someone like me. I'm here so protection means more than armor. It means accountability." She stepped down without looking back. Next they called Malik. He walked steady. No paper in hand. No drawing this time. Just his voice. "My name is Malik Carter. I'm 10. I don't want to be afraid anymore." That was all he said. And it was enough. An hour later, the ruling came. Officer Brent Mallory, terminated with cause, stripped of pension, placed under federal investigation for misconduct, excessive force, and obstruction of prior complaints. No applause. Just breathe. Long held, finally released. Outside, under the low winter sky, reporters swarmed. "Danielle, what's next for you? What now?" She paused, looked down at Malik beside her, then back at the cameras. "I'm going home, to open my gym, to teach more kids how to stay standing. I'm not a hero. I'm just a woman who heard her family cry and answered back louder. That night, back at the gym, Danielle unlocked the front door and stepped into the quiet. She hung a new sign above the mats. The Carter Foundation, Strength with Purpose. And beneath it, Malik pinned his drawing, the rooftop image, the kids, the words, "We stand now." They stood in silence for a long while. Finally, Malik looked up and asked, "Auntie, will they ever stop coming?" Danielle placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "No," she said, "but now they'll know we're not alone anymore."